Good afternoon. Welcome to the Riverfront Redevelopment Authority meeting. Call the meeting to order. Our first items from the chairman are update on Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority committee activities. Anything anybody wants to report? Item B is an update on Map 3 of Riverfront subcommittee activities. Anything there? Brian?
We had the meeting last week, and the biggest item that we've been talking about, and Mike possibly will want to talk later in items from the community, and Pat I know reflected on his, it's about the Whitewater Park on the river. And I guess right now timing is very, very critical. Hopefully there's a FEMA report that has to be approved prior to them being able to move forward with implementation of it. But that was a lot of the talk, and then Mike possibly will want to say something just kind of about the Phase 2 improvements.
Mr. Chairman, I've got an update on that.
Okay.
Brian, yes, we are still waiting on FEMA to formally approve or to give us the go-ahead, which we were originally going to hold up signing the plans until that happened, and that decision has been reversed. Eric has signed the plans. We're going to move forward with the advertisement. I don't remember the exact dates, but it seemed like we're going to the council for advertisement perhaps on the 10th of June. But we certainly will not award a contract to a contractor prior to getting that approval from FEMA.
So, Dennis, we're still actively working with FEMA and
Yes.
trying to push them to move that.
And we don't see any issue with them. It's just a matter of them working it through their process.
Right. And we don't, I mean, I just want to be sure it's not lost in their inbox somewhere. They know that we've got a timing problem. And
Eric and his staff are staying on top of it.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Moving on to item 3A, the minutes of April 22nd.
Move approval.
Any comments? Please record your vote. Item is approved. Thank you. Moving to the consent docket, there are two items of sand mining, oil and gas report, and also the Oklahoma Riverfront corridor events update.
Move approval of both items.
Did I get a second in that? I'm sorry. Been moved and seconded. Any comments? If not, please record your vote. Item is approved. Moving to our primary agenda items. Item A is to receive the Oklahoma Maintenance Projects update.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I apologize. I don't have a PowerPoint for you this afternoon, so I'll just have to read from the report itself. Item number one is our hydraulic cylinder replacement. We are scheduled to begin the cylinder replacement on the Eastern Avenue Dam next Monday. In conjunction with that, we're also at the same time, about every 18 months, each of the dams has a tank at the control house that holds all the hydraulic fluid that actually flows out and actually actuates the cylinders. And about every 18 months, we have to go in and we have to change out that fluid. It's a special kind of fluid that we use. It's environmentally friendly. In case we do have a release, it doesn't hurt the fish in the river. But in conjunction with the cylinder change out at the Eastern Avenue Dam next week, we're also going to be doing a wholesale change out of all the hydraulic fluid that's there at Eastern Avenue. So we've got two very big projects scheduled at the Eastern Dam for early next week. Item number two is the ongoing Canal Zone G item. It's my understanding that we do have in hand now a temporary permit for the Devon River Cruisers to access the extended Zone G. Apparently they did not do that this weekend, but we do have a permit in hand through, I believe it's the end of next month, that will allow us to go through there. We are still working with our risk manager, who's working with a consultant, who's working with 3 different insurance companies in an effort to obtain the necessary insurance for the pedestrian access. As of last Friday, it's a very different situation. It's basically sidewalk insurance, and the insurance companies that we're dealing with, this is something totally new to them, so they don't know how to price it, they don't know what limits of liability and all that, but our risk manager and the consultant that we have are actively working with them, and when I spoke to Mr. Wingard just 10 minutes ago, he said we are very, very close to having that done. So once we get the pedestrian insurance in place, we'll be able to formalize the final agreement for both the riverboats and the pedestrian access, and then hopefully we can put this issue to bed. So that's where we're at right now. Yes,
This
sir.
weekend is the College World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be open for the participants who are in town for the College World Series? If not, we're missing a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. I think it's inexcusable.
It will definitely be open for the river cruisers. Whether it's open for pedestrian access or not is entirely dependent on whether or not we can get the insurance. We actually don't know, sir, at this time, what that insurance policy premium is going to be and whether or not it will take a city council action to actually approve the purchase of it because of what the potential cost of that premium could be. If it's under a certain limit, the city engineer can approve it. If it's over that limit, it takes city council authority, I believe if it's over like $50,000, it has to go to the city council. So it's dependent upon what happens with the risk manager, our consultant, and the 3 underwriters that we're currently working with.
Paul, maybe there's an opportunity. I mean, I can't imagine the policy is going to be that expensive, but if it were, maybe if we can find somebody to underwrite it, maybe we could get them to underwrite it, for an event purpose, for a weekend, and then put a full policy into effect or something. But Councilman McAtee is right, that if we lose this during the tournament, it's just so frustrating for all the work that Mike's done down in the river.
Exactly. I don't want to dive off into the insurance world because I'm definitely not qualified to speak to that, but
There are probably a couple different
I'll
ways
pass
to slice
I'll pass
the
that request along.
opportunity.
Okay. All right. Item number 3 is the Meridian Landing. Spoke with the project manager this morning. Some of the landscaping that had died has been replaced. They did the final inspection last week. There's additional plant materials that have been added to a punch list that need to be replaced. Once that additional material is replaced, we'll be able to send an item to the City Council for final acceptance. Right now, we're shooting for early July to actually final accept the project. And the final item, the May Avenue Dam Control House, we advertised for bids this morning at the City Council. Those specifications will be released tomorrow by the City Clerk, and we intend to receive bids for that project on June the 17th. So we estimate that project to be in the neighborhood of about $50,000 to $75,000. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. If not, request that the report be accepted as submitted.
Paul, bring me up to speed in my previous life on this, on the hydraulic cylinders.
Yes, sir.
We were pulling those off and redoing them and
Yes.
putting those old ones back on. Is that still what we're doing?
We actually awarded a contract to fabricate entirely new cylinders. And what we're doing is we're putting the new cylinders on and taking the ones that are on all 3 of the existing dam structures back to the vendor. They're inspecting them, putting new seals, new bearings, anything that needs to be done, and then once those are ready, then we'll come back, we'll take more cylinders off, put the refabricated ones on, and just keep that process going.
So you'll have a complete extra set of cylinders. Is that the case, or you just going to do a few?
Not complete, but we will have a set for every dam. Like, for example, on the Eastern Avenue, we'll have 2 cylinders for May and Brum, because the cylinders are identical. We'll have as many as 4 in reserve in case we lose one. We'll have one in the warehouse. We can go get it, put it on there right away. So that's the plan.
Any other questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to receive his report?
So move.
Been moved and seconded. Please record your vote. Item is approved. Moving on to item B is to receive a consultant review committee report on on-call engineering service for the Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority and authorize the staff to negotiate a contract with Triad Design Group.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? If not, please record your vote. Item is approved. Move to item C is approve of request by Industrial Investment Company, Swisser Investments, LLC, EPIC Paintball Park, LLC, to submit an application to the City Planning Commission for a PUD, a portion of which would cover property currently owned by the city and in Riverfront Redevelopment Authority properties, which facility would incorporate outdoor recreational land uses, specifically paintball, which is not currently permitted under the existing zoning. Said property is located in the vicinity of Southwest 15th and County Line Road. Any comments, questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments?
I'd like to see a presentation. I'm confused. And
Okay.
I'd like to know the impact on the trails, if any.
Kelly, would you like to visit?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the authority. My name is Kelly Work, and my address is 105 North Hudson, Suite 304, and I'm here representing the applicants relating to this item. Also present with me today is Thane Swisher with Industrial Investment Company and Swisher Investments, and also with Epic Paintball Park, LLC, which is proposed to be the operator of this facility. And I do have an exhibit that I can show you, Councilman, I think will be helpful to kind of understand how will propose to operate this public paintball park consistent with the other activities that are going on along the river, including your trails, which will be just on the south side of the river across from this area where the paintball park will be located. I have an aerial photo. It's a little bit busy, but I'm hopeful that you'll be able to identify the area and where we're proposing to have the activities. And if you need me to, I can certainly hand it around to you. Incidentally, I wanted to mention that Randy Coles, who is one of the principals and the person who has the 20-plus years of the paintball experience, had planned to be here today or be with you today, but he had a previously scheduled family vacation, and they insisted that he come along. So he was unable to be present today, and he sends his apologies. Let me see if I can get you oriented. Here is I-40
Yeah.
at the north, and then right in the
Mr. Work, before you go on, there is a copy, an 8.5 by 11 copy
Okay.
in everybody's packet, just for your
All right,
reference.
yeah.
But
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Clowers, yeah. So you have a copy of this, just a smaller version, but let me see if I can orient you here. I-40 is here at the top. Here is where would be County Line Road. The County Line Road right-of-way is right here. Southwest 15th Street there at the south. Here's the Peterbilt facility there to the east, and then here is the Terex facility, formerly CMI, on the west side. Here's their training or testing facility. The area that we are proposing to include in this proposed paintball park is all of this area outlined in yellow. So it includes 130 acres total, approximately. The area that is owned by the city and managed by the authority is this triangular-shaped area that abuts the river here. So it's just identified in white, and it's shaded a little bit on this aerial photo. So this is approximately 20 acres. That is the city-owned property. One of the reasons why it's important for this operator, for us to be able to utilize that city-owned property, is that there is a road that runs through it. So we plan, if this item is approved, if you all determine to approve this lease agreement, we would incorporate that 20 acres into the 130. It would permit us then to get access from these areas to the west and to the north, down to these areas to the south, because we would have this road that would be where we'd be able to travel through. And additionally, it is proposed that at some point, not initially, but at some point in the future, that these wooded areas would be incorporated into the paintball activities. So they call it woods ball. So there would be some woods ball activity that would be incorporated within the area that is the city-owned property. Initially, our operations will be, the paintball activities will be centered in this area here, and we'll have spaces for parking here, and then we would set up a number of paintball fields in this area immediately to the west of the parking. But then at some point in the future, maybe a year off, then, and of course there would be a lot of preparation that would be required just to get this area ready for use for paintball activities, because there's a lot of underbrush that would be required to be cleared. But what is proposed, Councilman McAtee, specifically in response to your question, is the river is right here, and there will be a 75-foot buffer zone that will be established from the banks of the river into where the paintball activities would be located. So the area on the east side of that 75-foot line will be out of bounds, and there will be no paintball activity that will be going on there. It will be roped off. It'll be left in its natural state. It won't be cleared. So with that, we feel that there will be adequate separation between the paintball activity and the trails activity. And you can see on this, the line where the trails are proposed to be located is also shown on this exhibit on the east side of the river. This area of just south of I-40 is right where the river makes its bend and heads east. And of course this area along here is heavily wooded along this west bank of the river, which provides a natural buffer, we believe, and all of that will remain in place. The area where the paintball activities are proposed there would be some clearing of the underbrush, but the trees would remain. But we do want to make sure, and of course we've addressed that language has been included in the lease agreement, that any of the activities that we're conducting within the paintball park area not in any way interfere with the trails activity on the other side of the river. So we're very mindful of that, and we want this paintball park to be compatible with everything else that's going on along the river. And when the paintball activities are underway, it will all be with supervision. There will be refs with every group of paintball participants. So it's not an unsupervised activity. What is proposed will be highly regulated. This will be a professionally run facility. The initial plans are that it will be open for public use, initially on weekends only, so a Saturday and Sunday operation. It would be available for use by larger groups by appointment during the week, but initially it will be mainly a Saturday and Sunday activity. I do have just an exhibit that I just would like to pass around that I don't think you all have, that just, and I'll just pass this around, but it just is an idea. It's examples of some of the other facilities of this type that have been established around the country, and there's one that's a little bit off center in this picture where it's just almost immediately adjacent to I-20 in Atlanta, Georgia, Interstate 20. It just gives you an idea of the level of sophistication of some of these paintball parks as this activity is growing in popularity. And so we don't propose right off the bat to have this level of infrastructure for this park. More likely when we start out, we'll have more, they use a lot of inflatable air type bunkers, and so initially that's what we would anticipate using. But let me just pass this around. It gives you kind of an idea of what's being done around the country in facilities of this type. Yes, sir.
And forgive my ignorance of paintball, I've never done it before, but what's the carry distance on these things? I mean, is anybody when you fully develop this and the people are out participating on the far east edge of what would be your area, would a paintball carry to the trail?
The information that I have is that the maximum range for the type of paintball marker, is the term that is used in the industry, is about 200 feet. So I think that we're going to be beyond the range of the trails, for example, on the other side of the river, so long as persons abide by, our rules, which is we're going to have the out-of-bounds area marked, and the area to the east of that will be out-of-bounds and off-limits, and there won't be any paintball activity going on there.
I noticed the PUD boundary, if I'm reading this right, is the east side of the river. And I'm curious why you need the river included in it. Why isn't the boundary on the west side of the river?
I'm unaware of that. Are you looking at the legal description for the?
Well, no. This yellow line is on the east side of the river. So, are you going to do something with the river itself?
No, sir.
Do you need it included in there?
No, and understand this exhibit and this boundary is an approximation. This is not something prepared by a surveyor. It's something that was overlain from the legal description for this 20-acre tract, I expect, over this aerial photo. So I honestly cannot tell you, Mr. Mars, where that boundary lies. The tract that is this R1 zone tract that's owned by the city, we have supplied a legal description from the land records, from Oklahoma County land records, of what that property includes. So that boundary will be the boundary of the PUD. Where that falls in relation to the river, I do not know the answer to that question. I wouldn't rely on this aerial photo, however.
Will you fence the river on your property?
It
on your
would
area?
not be fenced, but it would be more like a roped-off area that would be marked with flags as an out-of-bounds line. And then again, as I mentioned, it will be that there won't be any clearing done in that buffer area, so it will be left in its natural condition with whatever thicket is there. It's pretty dense at present.
Kelly, if you Put that up there, hold that up there a minute. And just that R1 down by Southwest 15th Street, right there, okay, that property right there, have you talked to that property owner?
Randy Coles has spoken with them, and he has advised me that they don't have any problem with us being
Mr. Clowers and I have some experience with that property owner that we'd be happy to give you free of charge offline. But I would be very precise and careful in getting his permission.
Well, and of course, they will be notified of the proposed rezoning, and I encouraged Mr. Coles to make sure that whatever questions they have that he needs to have answered. The problems that, from what he has told me, that his conversation with them, the problems that they've had with that area is that there's an awful lot of trespassing that goes on, and there's an awful lot of four-wheelers and other vehicles that are in there operating without permission. And so this they are seeing this, as, according to Mr. Coles, as a benefit, because we're going to be more controlling, more regulating access, and we will have a gate that will be at the entrance of the facility, so it won't just be available and open to anyone to come in. So, but I appreciate that, your comment.
Francis has pointed out to me that your description goes to the center of the river, his legal description, and that would be normal for the property description to go to the center, because most people own to the center of the river, and then the other property owner takes the other side because the river ebbs and flows. So it does go to the center, and they're probably pulling it off of a deed that's in the county assessor's office.
Right.
Kelly, have you leased all this other property?
All of that property is under the control of Mr. Swisher's companies, Industrial Investment Company and Swisher Investments.
So the city's parcel is the only piece you haven't leased?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm more concerned about the river. I know nothing about paintball either, but is this soluble? I mean, how do you clean this stuff up? I mean, for example, you say you're going to have a rope and try to keep people under control, which may not happen, and we end up with a bunch of mess along the river. Who cleans that up, and how easy is it to clean up?
The paintballs that will be used at this facility, first of all, no one will be allowed to bring their own paintballs. They must use the paintballs that are provided by us, by the Epic Paintball Park. They are water soluble, and they are biodegradable, and they also are designed, they're a lower impact, I guess is more of a safety concern, which is not really address your question, but it's some of the paintballs that are commercially sold at Walmart and other places, I'm advised, are harder, they're more solid to give them a longer shelf life, so we won't be using those. We'll be using ones that have a thinner skin, that break more easily, and that don't have any adverse environmental impact. They both biodegrade and they're water soluble.
Sounds like I may be the only one up here that has any paintball experience. But I do. And this is, I think, a wonderful site for it, really. It should be great fun out there. And I would be surprised if those things carry 200 feet. Do you really think they go as far as 200 feet? Yeah.
Come on up, Thane.
Sorry, Thane, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but yeah, unless there's amazing new technology. I mean, some of those things do have air pressure behind them, but...
Well, it's my understanding, I don't play paintball myself, but some of my friends have, my brothers have. They're regulated by several things. One is the size of the paintball. The smaller ones travel less distance, but they also have different air pressures, and the guns or markers are checked with some type of a radar. When you bring your own gun to the facility, it's checked, and if it's overpressured, then they re-regulate it. The others are rental guns, and they are all checked, and, but the distance, the buffer zones have been set up where the distance of the paintball could not reach across the river onto the trails, couldn't reach the highway to hit cars or trucks. We designed it to where you cannot reach that, even if it was unprotected. Most of the areas that will have paintball in them will have fencing or a natural buffer zone. If they hit a leaf or a twig or a stick, they disintegrate. There's no way for them to really impact other places.
One thing, just to make sure you all have all of the information about what approvals we will be required to obtain. The first item on your agenda today is our request for your authorization for us to make application to the city to include this 20 acres as part of our rezoning application. All of this particular use under Oklahoma City zoning ordinance is under a general participant recreation outdoor use. So it does require a special zoning approval. So on none of the property presently, none of the 130 acres, is this an allowed use at present. So we have made application through a planned unit development to the city to request approval, and we're leaving the regulations, sort of the underlying regulations in place. We're just adding, in the terms of the PUD, we're just adding as an additional permitted use the outdoor participant recreation, and limited to a paintball park as further restricted under the terms of the PUD. So the first order of business that we are requesting from you all is authorization to allow us to include this 20 acres as part of our total 130 acres. And then the second item on your agenda is the proposed lease agreement, where we are asking you to lease the 20 acres to Epic Paintball Park LLC. And of course that lease agreement would be, in addition to all the other terms that it has, it would be subject and conditioned upon our obtaining approval for the planned unit development from the Planning Commission and City Council. So we've got that application pending. It's set before the Planning Commission on July the 10th, I believe. And so in order for us to include this 20 acres, we need to ask for your approval. And we think this will be a great attraction for the city, and it will be a great attraction for the area along the river. And it's unlike anything that is available. There are some kind of rough paintball facilities that are available not within Oklahoma City but nearby. And there's one near Guthrie and one near Piedmont. And this is definitely planned to be definitely the next level in terms of sophistication and amenities. And one thing I should also mention is that this area, the 20 acres that you all, that is the city property that we're asking to be included and to lease, is almost 90% of that area is within the floodway. So we will not be able to build structures on it or even put temporary kind of improvements just because of the restrictions on the floodway. So it really will be limited to this use for access to and from, as I mentioned, and then also this down the road a ways to allow some paintball activities in that area. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
For further clarification, your 75-foot out bounds is not from the center of the river where the property is, but from the beginning of the woods on the south side into the interior of the property. Is that correct?
Yes, from the west bank of the river, I guess I would say, or from the edge of the tree line in, to be more clear. and not from the center of the river.
Right. Thank you.
The Land and Water Use Committee heard this presentation, and we unanimously said that this would be a great activity, a family activity. Different organizations will be able to bring their clubs out there. We thought it really complemented everything that we're trying to do along the river.
Is your access going to be this old road off the T-Rex site? Is that how you're going to get into it?
We get in from the road, that is basically the frontage road on I-40, which is here. And it just comes to an end, basically, in our property. So that's how we'll take access.
Okay.
And you access that from Morgan Road, so that goes back to Morgan Road. So everybody has to come in and out from Morgan Road to get to our site. And then we'll, as I mentioned, we'll control that access. We'll have a gate, so it will not be open when we're not there and open for business.
We have a motion. Second.
I think there's just been there's so much excitement about the trail. I just want to make sure we do due diligence and we just make sure on the impact. If somebody's going down the trail, will they be aware of the paintball or will they not? Or will there be enough separation there you wouldn't even know? I'm just really concerned because there's a lot of questions out there about as this gets developed, because the number one thing on the park study was more trails. So now we're finally getting trails, and I'd sure hate for anything we could do now to keep from causing us problems.
Yes.
If we can do a little adjustment or whatever.
I think just from the way it's been described to me by Randy Coles, who has kind of designed this facility, is that it's his view that the persons who are using the trails will not even be aware that this activity is going on while it's going on. Because of the separation that exists and because of the extent of the tree cover that exists, and just because of the distance that will be between the trail and where the actual paintball activities are going to be happening. And just to give you some comfort level, too, that under the terms of this lease agreement, if for any reason you all decided that this was a bad idea and you didn't want to do it anymore, you can cancel the lease. So you have that right under this agreement.
The lease agreement does provide that we can terminate, I think, on 30 days' notice for any or no cause. And also, any of the improvements that they would make out there, like if you decide you want the boundary to be 100 feet, the city engineer could require them to do that. And also, the city engineer on the makeup of the paintball, it has to go through water quality, and they have to approve everything. So there's lots of checks in the lease agreement as written, that it will require a lot of staff approval of any of their proposals.
And we're okay with all of that. We don't anticipate there will be a problem, and we don't want there to be a problem. So we want to operate in harmony with everything else that's going on and all of our neighbors out there as well.
Any other questions of Mr. Work? We have a motion and a second. If none, please record your vote. The item is approved. As Mr. Work made mention of, item D is the companion to this, which is the approval of the lease agreement between the city and the Riverfront Redevelopment Authority.
Move approval. A question.
Yes, sir.
How much revenue will the Riverfront Authority get this? So the lease said $500. Is there any kind of override on their revenues? It won't be.
No, it was $500 annual rental.
And how does that compare with what they paid for the other land? Rather?
I do not know.
Well, we either own or control the other land. We don't have lease agreements, and the owners of the other land are going to be participants in this business operation that will be the paintball park.
They're going to be compensated by an override or essentially on your.
I can't answer that question for you, but they're going to be involved in the business of the park itself. It's not going to be a landlord-tenant operation.
Any other questions? Record your vote, please. Item is approved. Moving to item 6.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Item 6 is claims report.
Move the item.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? If not, record your vote. Item is approved. Additional items, A1 is Director of Development report. Pat?
Mr. Chairman, trustees, wanted to just call a couple of things to your attention. One is that we did have a successful grand opening of the long-awaited, much-anticipated zip line. Got excellent press coverage. A lot of folks have expressed continued interest, and we had a somewhat wet weekend, which is a blessing in many senses. Probably didn't help the attendance at the zip line or all of the river sport activities, but certainly very pleased to have that in place, and that was one of the things that we got more questions about than almost anything else on the river. It was pretty amazing. Another issue that I think is probably worthy of note is that the Oklahoma City Nationals drag boat race, the promoter for that has indicated that he's tentatively looking at some dates in 2015. So that's an event that has been here in previous years, and I think we may actually see that back on the river in 15. And then finally, I think it's really nice that the river is home to so many different groups and activities. In addition to the youth, the juniors, the seniors, the corporate folks that row, the University of Oklahoma women's team, the varsity program at OU, has now won its second straight Big 12 Conference championship right here on their home course, which is the Oklahoma River. And I think it takes a while for that sort of thing to sink in, but when you have the likes of Joe Castiglione standing on the sidelines watching this sort of thing happen, it further validates all of what we have been doing for years and years on the river. So thank you for your support, and if there are any questions, be happy to address them. Otherwise, would request that the report be received as submitted.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. On the last page of your report, it says the Director of Development is working with the park staff and others with regard to a survey of homeless populations in Oklahoma City. I was just curious, how, as far as the river is concerned, is that a problem for us, or?
Well, it's an issue. It has been an issue for many, many years, and there are areas along the river where homeless encampments have traditionally cropped up. They are fewer in number than they have been in years past. Some of that is thanks to some infill development. Some of that is thanks to some shelters and some wonderful homeless nonprofit organizations and outreach on the part of the community to help those populations. But it is a factor. Terry Ash is involved in that on behalf of the Parks Department, and I suspect there will be a survey at some point available.
Any other questions of Pat?
Move
Motion to
approval.
receive. Been moved and seconded. Please record your vote. Item is approved.
Mr. Chairman, let me take a couple of minutes, trustees. Our brand-new Parks and Recreation Director, Doug Cupper, began his job with the city today and was introduced to council this morning. So Councilwoman Salyer, Councilman Ryan, and Councilman McAtee already saw Mr. Cupper, but I certainly want to welcome him to the city. He's been with the Parks Director in Wichita, Kansas for 14 years, and his entire career has been as a Parks and Recreation Director, or in that regard, he's got a degree from Ohio State University in Parks and Recreation. And in our interview, a couple of interviews that Mr. Couch and I had with Doug, became plainly evident that he is excited to be in Oklahoma City. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce him to you all.
Thank you.
Welcome. We'll look forward to working with you.
Looking forward to working with you all, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any items from any of the trustees? Any comments from anybody in the audience? I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Thank you.